Welcome back to the Bernard Lee Poker Show. So we have already spoken with Blair Hinkle about his experience at the Bally's Casino or Bally's Poker Room during last weekend when there was the rumor of an active shooter. We're also talking now this time with Preston McEwen about his experience. And he had a unique twist because ironically, he was downtown earlier in the summer when it wasn't a false alarm. There was actually a shooting there. So that obviously prompted him to think that this might be real. So welcome back to the show. And thank you so much, Preston, for joining us, my friend.
Yeah, no problem.
So talk a little bit about the experience. Again, to set the scene, last Saturday night, the World Series main event just wrapped up a couple hours earlier, and play is going on in Bally's in Paris, and it's a Saturday night in Vegas. So where were you, and what kind of, what experience did you have?
Yeah, so I was actually playing a tournament in Paris when it happened, and I was on the I guess the back side of the room, closest to the kitchen / drink station area. And so basically I was mid-hand, and I hear screaming and people getting up and running towards me. And I mean, this is while the 1500 was going on, the 5K was going on, there were some dailies going on. And so this was hundreds of people running towards me. Now, luckily I was away from a lot of these tables. And so I was kind of one of the first people to get to the back of the house or the kitchen area. And I avoided getting trampled. I avoided injury. Luckily, a lot of my friends can't say the same, unfortunately. But yeah,
what injuries did they face?
A lot of them, it stemmed from they saw a cocktail server fall over, and they were helping pick them up, and then they would get trampled by dozens of people coming in behind them. And I mean, it was mass hysteria. I mean, I would like to say I've never seen anything like it, but I actually had 2 weeks prior at Golden Nugget when a similar thing happened. But I mean, it's when somebody yells active shooter, and then somebody else says everybody's running or we're all running, and then everybody's running towards you, you want to run in the opposite direction because you assume if there's an active shooter, it's coming from that direction. So
right.
We all, I ended up running to the back kitchen. Realized there wasn't a whole lot of, there weren't many places to go. So I ended up in the back liquor closet in the Paris Ballroom.
Wow.
I know. And then you realize you're trapped. And so, there are probably 20 or 30 of us back there. And luckily I saw a friendly face, Scott Drobes, one of my buddies. And so at least I was comforted by knowing that I had like a friend back there. But we barricaded the kitchen door. We were ready to barricade the liquor cabinet if it came down to it. And I'm sure there were some, exterior exits down the hallways, but, at that moment we were just listening for gunshots. At the time we hadn't heard any gunshots. We just saw everybody stampeding. So, at the time we're just listening for gunshots and trying to figure out what our next move was going to be.
Yeah. So what prompted you to kind of leave this, the kind of security of where you were? Were you guys looking up social media and finding out that it was a false alarm, or how did you finally realize, oh, okay, we can come out?
Right. So we listened for gunshots. We didn't hear any. People peeking their heads out the door to make sure there's nobody in there. And it seemed like security was letting everybody know the coast was clear to some extent. And then we started checking on social media and text messages, and people were saying the shooting was, down the street at Cosmo or down the street at Aria and vice versa. And we there's a lot of miscommunication, misinformation. We weren't really sure what was actually happening at the time, but eventually security called us back out and let us know that it was a false alarm and there was no active shooter in Paris. And then all the poker players, I mean, there were tables tilted over, chips everywhere. I saw a deck of cards out in the hallway, shoes everywhere, purses. backpacks, everything.
What do
So
you think prompted the mass hysteria in Paris? Because was it somebody said something? Did they hear like a gunshot? Like again, there's so many reports going on. Some people said that there were firecrackers. Some people heard like some banging. Like what prompted this mass rush of people running out?
um, I'm not positive. At my table, nobody was talking about anything. Nobody had heard anything. But from what what I've heard from other people was they would get text messages from friends or family at other casinos saying, there's an active shooter on the strip, get off the strip. And then, for me personally, I turned around and I saw a stampede heading towards me. And so, I'm not going to take that lightly. I've got a family and 2 kids. I'm going to get out of there as soon as possible.
Of course. Right. Absolutely. Now, obviously, it fortunately was a false alarm. You guys were barricaded in this back area. Now that you've come out and you see it, tables everywhere, chips everywhere, cards everywhere. How did they kind of figure out or try to figure out, were they going to restart, not restart? A lot of issues with regards to that. And eventually they didn't restart, but kind of what was the buzz? Because now I'm sure there were numerous people who were on social media that were just terrified. Some people just never returned, like what was going on? And also from all indications, kudos to the WSOP staff, not only for the safety, as I heard they set up like EMT areas, but also just getting everything together and remaining as calm as you could in this really unprecedented situation, right?
Right. So at first they sent everybody out of the poker room, out into the hallways. And at this point, everybody's gathering together with their friends. We're checking social media. We're checking the Las Vegas Police Department Twitter page, checking. They said there's, the shootings were unfounded, so there was actually nothing happening. But that was the only tweet they sent out. So we're still a little skeptical, trying to figure out what's going on. And eventually I ran into a friend who was playing a different tournament, and he gave me a ride to a separate location, and we kind of just hung out there until we got further word. And then about, I couldn't tell you how long, maybe an hour or 2 later, they actually sent out a tweet saying they are going to bag chips and they are bringing everybody back to the casino to do it. And that's when we realized the coast was clear. We kind of figured out what had actually happened. As far as we know, rocks were thrown at MGM's front window from a disgruntled customer. Oh, and that's kind of what caused all the panic. Yes. Yeah, so, we eventually went back to Paris, and they resumed the daily tournaments, which was actually one of the tournaments I was playing at the time. And then they bagged up the closer and the 5K.
I mean, it must have been very unusual. Like, you really got to trust people in that scenario, because they're going to, with chips everywhere, they're going to say like, well, I had this many chips. And in all honesty, some people would be like, I don't know. Like, how was I supposed to know? Like, I had something, that kind of thing. And so definitely an unusual situation. How was it when you returned? Were people just, obviously very shaken? Did some people just, from your tables, that they just didn't show up? How did they handle that situation? Because I know I saw online, I think KevMath tweeted out, like, if you know this person, let them know they ended up finishing 8th, even though they got blinded out. Things like that. It must have been very right?
I think one of the dailies was close to the final table, and he had maybe chip lead, and he never showed back up. In my tournament, we had several people not show back up, and I didn't plan to show up. But we actually while we were gone and talking about it, we didn't think any of the tournaments would resume. We thought there'd be some kind of ICM chop, or everybody get reimbursed. We had no idea that they would actually resume play later that night.
Yeah, very unusual. But let's talk a little bit about why to you this seemed totally legitimate, because I think I remember seeing you send out a message on our group chat when I was out there that you were up in downtown. Now, this wasn't on the Strip. It was downtown Las Vegas, up on Fremont Street. And there was truly, this is confirmed, that there was a shooting, right?
Right. So I had just finished a tournament at Golden Nugget. I was in line at the cashier, on the other side of the casino, closer to Fremont, and waiting to get cashed out. And a similar thing, I turn around and all of a sudden there's hundreds of people stampeding towards me.
Yeah.
So I ended up running behind the bar that was right by the cashier. I got trampled. I was kind of in a dog pile under about a dozen people that were all like, everybody in the casino was ducking and covering. And it was confirmed that there was a shooting out on Fremont right outside Golden Nugget. And this was about a week after I heard of another shooting out on Fremont right outside Golden Nugget. So
crazy. Absolutely crazy.
Kind of a similar thing, security is running all over, making sure they isolate the situation. And then, I after that one, I just took off. I, saved the cash out for another day.
Right. And so, I mean, for you, having seen this, that makes it also real. When you're at Bally's Paris, you see people running at you. It's like deja vu. It's like, PTSD. You get you see it again. You're not going to think twice. It's got to be, to you, it's the same thing, right? I mean, this isn't a false alarm. This has got to be for real. Right.
Yeah, it's definitely a scary experience. My wife and my mother and my sisters experienced a similar thing in the Hoover Mall a couple years ago during Thanksgiving in Alabama. There was an active shooter in the mall, and they got barricaded back in a makeup store. And so, my wife already has PTSD from that one. And so like for this to happen 2 times in a week, it's frustrating because we shouldn't have to deal with this while we're just trying to, I understand like mass panic and whatnot, but we shouldn't have to deal with these kind of scary situations while we're trying to just, play poker and
right, or just having fun. And unfortunately, also obviously there was the shooting that killed about 60 people in Las Vegas during a concert, and it is a very scary time, unfortunately. And I think I mentioned in my interview with Blair, when we went to the Celtics game during the playoffs, we go through metal detectors, so it's a little safer, if
right.
not more safer. But when we walked through, there were 3 policemen with automatic rifles, and I was stunned. I really was. I was like, whoa, really floored. And ironically, I guess it was relatively safer there. But as with any of these Las Vegas casinos, someone could just walk in. There's no metal detector. There's no technical security at the front door. And if somebody just walked in, even though there is security in the poker room area, it's not like someone's watching that, right? Someone can just walk in, and unfortunately the scenario can happen. And so very, very scary situation. And obviously a lot of people, not only with the panic, but also getting injured as well. And it's really difficult, right? I've talked with certain people saying that you see these people fall down, you want to help them, but with this mass panic, there's 2 real unusual situations. You help them, you're going to get knocked down. And it's very difficult for you to do that. And then also the reverse of, you are running and trying to go in such a quick direction that way. It's not like you just stop. You would literally have to turn around and help them because you're already going in that direction. And how can you do that when there's dozens, if not hundreds of people behind you running toward you? I mean, it's impossible to stop in that spot. So it's a real catch-22 and a real difficult situation. Is that similar to what you experienced?
Yeah, like I said, I was on the back side of the room, so I was kind of away from the stampede. I had maybe 2 tables in front of me that, took off in front of me, and they knocked their chairs over on the ground. So I'm basically hurdling chairs. I didn't see people fall in front of me. And I'm obviously not looking back. I'm just trying to get out as quickly as possible. But, we're hurdling chairs. And so I never personally got trampled. But I mean, it's like, what do you do? Do you turn around and make sure it's at that stage is kind of just like fight or fight. And you gotta, the instincts kick in, and there's so many people on social media saying, I would have done this, I would have held my ground. It's easy to say, but when you're sitting at a poker table and people are yelling active shooter and they're running at you, you turn around and you run the other way. It's just how it is.
Of course. So how was it the next day? When you come back, obviously everyone's a little bit nervous, et cetera. Like what kind of happened?
Well, I mean, it seemed like, people were still, they're still a little traumatized, I guess. And some were banged up. You saw D-Neg's hand, you saw,
Oh, yeah.
a lot of top name pros got injured as well. I mean, a lot of my friends, they twisted their knees. They, think they may have broken something. People were banged up all over the place. So, people were a little traumatized, but it seemed like everybody got back to normal the next day when they realized, it was a false alarm and there wasn't actually an active shooter.
Right.
So
around what time was it that this happened?
I would guess it was probably around 10:30.
Right.
I'm not positive, but I would guess around 10:30 p.m. Vegas time.
I mean, how fortunate that the World Series main event final table finished.
Right.
Because to say that 10:30, I mean, I've been there, for the last 20 years, I've been there many times at that final table reporting it or, watching whatever. 10:30, what are you kidding me? That could have easily happened at 10:30. They were fortunate that they got down to 3 and they ended relatively early, but could you imagine like that place is packed, heads up, and all of a sudden mass panic? That would have been, and then to have to bring them back. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. I think there was a tournament that was down to 4, a bracelet event down to 4 players that they did bring back that night and finish out that night.
Right. Yes, I heard that.
Sure which event that was.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, nobody thought after that happened they were going to resume any play for the rest of the series. We all thought they were going to cancel every tournament.
Yeah.
So I was really shocked to see about an hour later we're going to bag chips, we're going to resume the dailies, and everything's going to go back to normal. So
right. Well, you are in the middle of the Tournament of Champions. So for everyone who knows, it's the last tournament of the series, which is Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. They bring all the circuit ring winners and all the bracelet winners. You get a free entry into a $1 million free roll. Every year there is kind of the championship event, and this is kind of how it's evolved to being. And many people said it was a very big success, around 300 players. I think a lot of people were surprised it was so much. How is that event? Because this is relatively new in that sense. In the past, it's been the circuit winners, and then people who won a ring could buy in the top 100 point winners of the World Series, etc. So how has it been so far? I know you're just at the beginning of it.
Yeah, so we're on dinner break now. I think 580 or so people qualified, and right now there's about 450 people in it. And I think we've lost about 200 of those. Yeah. And the registration is still open until day 2, so we might see more come in later on. But I mean, so far I was expecting a star-studded field, which there are. There's plenty of bracelet winners around, but it kind of reminds me of like a circuit 400 right now. Sure. I have a couple good players at my table, but it's not the toughest field I've ever played, by any means. So
you said that there was over 500 that qualified ring. I guess there were that many ring winners, right? I mean, I guess there were.
Well, they include online and live. So
I see. But it wasn't. It had nothing to do with the leaderboard as we've seen in the past. That wasn't in play. That was not in play.
If you want a ring or a bracelet online or live over the past season, then you qualify. So
wow, a lot more.
A bunch of qualifiers.
Yeah. Well, that's great. No, I mean, that's fantastic. It's tough just because you have to stay to the end, obviously, or come back. But obviously, a nice little free roll for everyone there, and it works out well. Listen, Preston, I'm very glad. I was watching on social media, and all of a sudden this happened. I was kind of like, what's going on, et cetera. And was really pleased to see that everyone was safe. I know that some people did get hurt, but I'm glad that everything worked out well. You're safe. It was a false alarm in this time, not the other times that you had downtown, but glad you're safe.
Right.
Good luck the rest of the way in the Tournament of Champions, and wish you all the best. And hopefully I'll be doing another interview with you after you win the Tournament of Champions, my friend.
That sounds good. Thank you, Bernard.
Okay. Preston McEwen here. Hopefully you got the information with regards to what happened firsthand, first with Blair Hinkle, now with Preston. Next week, we are going to also talk with Joe Cata, who was at Bally's when it happened, not in the poker room area, but in the casino floor, which is actually a very interesting take on it as well. And we'll also talk with Matt Glantz, who was the $1 million winner in the Mystery Super Bounty. So 2022 WSOP just about to wrap up. We'll have interviews with more bracelet winners and World Series main event final table. And as always, may you always go in with the best hand, and may you never get unlucky. Good night, everybody.